talk about trade rumors a good amount here on the show, but these Anfernee Simons 76ers rumors just don't make a whole lot of sense to me. We're going to dive in to the latest, why the Sixers are connected to the new Boston Celtics. But speaking of the Boston Celtics, since we're talking about them today, I talked to my good friend Tyler Smith, who hosts our Celtics Today channel here at Chat Sports. We're going to do a race to 50 subs. Who can pick up 50 subscribers quicker this week? We're starting here on Monday, August 25th with each of our videos, and we'll see who can get there first. Can we get there on today's show? If you want Sixers news, rumors, analysis, a whole lot more all year long, lock us in, hit that sub button. And without further ado, let's get right into the report from Sam Amico, NBA reporter for Hoops Wire, who had this to say. The Sixers, along with the Denver Nuggets, among the teams that have expressed interest in a possible trade for Celtics guard Anfernee Simons. Simons was acquired from the Trailblazers earlier this offseason as a part of a deal for veteran guard Jrue Holiday. Of course, Boston making a whole lot of moves this offseason. Boston has reportedly explored flipping Simons elsewhere, but to this point, they have been unable to find a team willing to do so. Of note, Simons can't be traded for about a week or two until we get to the start of September. I'll say this before we dive into the player that Simons is and what a trade could look like if there is legs to this. This rumor, out of all the ones we talk about, this one better not have some truth to it because I'm not a fan, personally, of Anfernee Simons' game or his fit on this team. But speaking of how much validity there is to this rumor, look, Sam Amico, he's not a nobody, right? You can see almost, well, just over now, 76,000 followers over on X/Twitter, senior NBA writer for Hoops Wire, and has worked for Fox Sports, Sports Illustrated, CBS Sports. So, look, he's clearly connected and has been around the sport for a long, long time. But it is hard to know when a report like this comes out at the end of August how true it might be. No matter how reputable the person is, you never know if they're just trying to stir up a headline or if their sources really are all that credible. So I can't confirm, how credible the sources are, but, Amico has been around for a while, and I don't think he would necessarily say this for no reason. Now, let's get to the talk on Simons, right? Because whether it's 100% true or not, it's being mentioned, right? So I want to be able to have these discussions and talk about it, especially when it's a player who is being connected to Philly, not just a player who might be traded, but the Sixers' name was thrown in there in that mix. Look, Anfernee Simons is a fine player. He's a talented offensive player. He's built up, a nice career thus far over his first, few seasons with the Portland Trailblazers. Came in the league very young. I think spent 6 or 7 years there in Portland before being traded this offseason in the Jrue Holiday deal to Boston. But look, there's a reason that Boston took him in and now is looking to ship him out. And this Sixers team, we've talked about this again and again and again, does just not need more guard play, especially with the skill set that Simons brings, because he's not a very good defender. In fact, he's a pretty poor defender. And when you throw Quentin Grimes into this equation, I talked about Malik Beasley, someone who has a very defined role who you're signing for cheap to potentially come in as another guard. You don't need someone like Simons, who is a lead guard, a score-first guard, not really a playmaker all that much. It is going to cost you not only his expensive salary, but also you have to trade for him. Now, again, Simons is a good player, not an all-star level player, but not someone that teams are going to totally not want on their squad. You can see he's been a near 20-point per game guy over the last few seasons. Of course, he's been in Portland his entire career. And look, the offense has never been the concern with Anfernee Simons, excuse me. The concern has been, one, can he play efficient basketball? You can see, 42, 43, low 40s from the field, not bad. The three-point shooting, honestly, pretty good. But can he play efficient basketball on a winning team? Can he work as an off guard? And so that's why, look, it's going to be a no for me, all right? It's going to be a no for me, dog. Like, his style of play next to Tyrese Maxey doesn't make a lot of sense to me personally. Again, he's not a good defender. He's got, some length, but pretty thin, pretty skinny. Has developed the offensive game to the point where, earlier in his career wasn't great at drawing fouls, attacking the basket, things like that. He's developed his offensive game where he's a skilled player, no doubt. But look, you already have Maxey there. I'd rather just have Grimes because look, if you trade for Simons, I doubt that Grimes ends up returning, and Grimes just brings a better skill set than someone like Anfernee Simons. Again, the Celtics traded for him earlier this offseason because they were trying to get off of the Jrue Holiday contract, and they're already looking to flip Anfernee Simons. So look, as a player, he's solid, he is talented, but I'm not so sure he can play winning basketball, especially with the skill sets that the Sixers team needs. I just do not think that Simons does provide that. Be honest with me here before we continue this conversation on Anfernee Simons. Do you believe these rumors from some Amico are true? Do you think the Sixers actually have expressed some interest in Simons? We know Daryl Morey likes to get involved in these trade talks. Give me a simple yes or no down below in the comment section. Get involved. Now, let's just say, for the sake of argument, that they are interested, that this report is true, and Daryl Morey has reached out to the Celtics to at least have some preliminary discussions on bringing in Anfernee Simons. What could a potential deal actually look like? What do the Sixers have to give up? What might it cost? I'll tell you what, it's pretty hard to put together a trade here. But before we do, I have a great new item that I got to tell you guys about that you can get your hands on right now if you go to chatsports.com/Sixers pullover. An insane deal on this fresh Sixers 2024-25 City Edition pullover hoodie. You can see, obviously, that City Edition logo right there in the center with the 7-6 brotherly love and that gold text right under. And then Sixers on the hood. Are you kidding me? This thing is absolutely clean and an insane deal. Was $120. It is 50% off for a limited time only, down to just $60. But that deal is not going to last long. So take advantage while you can. Again, it's a sick look, and you can get it for the cheap. Chatsports.com/Sixers pullover. You see the link right down below me, and it'll be in the comment section and description of today's show. So let's get back to Simons. Let's say, for argument's sake, the Sixers are interested. How does a deal possibly come to reality? Well, Anfernee Simons, and this is a big reason why the Celtics made this deal, is entering the final year of his contract. He'll be making $27.6 million and then be an unrestricted free agent after this season. So you have to keep that in mind when you're trading for him. Now, where that intrigues me is, are the Sixers maybe interested in this because he is expiring and they want to open some money next offseason? The only way they can really do that is if Paul George is involved in the deal. Now, we look at some potential trade assets for Philadelphia, right? Obviously, Joel Embiid, not going to be in a trade like this. You're obviously not trading Tyrese Maxey. I'm not trading Jared McCain. I'm not trading VJ Edgecombe, of course. So these are the realistic potential trade assets Philadelphia has. And remember, I said Anfernee Simons was making $27.6 million. Paul George is making 51. So if you want to do some type of Paul George Simons swap, like, it can't just be a 1-for-1. There has to be a third team out there that gets involved, maybe even 4 teams. It gets really, really complicated. So I don't think Paul George would be involved. So then after that, how do you get to almost $27 million? Oubre is at 8, Drummond's at 5, that's 13. Gordon, Larry, everyone else is on minimums. It's almost impossible to get to Simons' salary. Now, you don't have to quite get to that 27. Got to get to around 20, but still, you're trading like 4 guys for Anfernee Simons. That's ridiculous. The Sixers would absolutely never do that. So I don't see how any of these guys could be traded unless you somehow figure out a big 4-team Paul George trade. And then, I know some people will ask this, well, what about a Quentin Grimes sign and trade, right? We talked about the possibility of maybe Grimes getting out there, sending him out in a deal, bringing someone else in who might be a little bit cheaper, sign on a long-term deal. It's just really not feasible to sign and trade Grimes for Simons because we talked about this before, the base year compensation rule in the NBA. It's a little complicated, but the basics of it are when you try to sign and trade a restricted free agent like Grimes, his salary only counts for half of what you're paying him. So, for example, if the Sixers want to sign and trade Grimes for Simons, straight up, just a 1-for-1, the salary for Philly for Grimes only counts as half of what you gave him. So say you gave him $50 million. The salary would only count as 25. So in this instance, Simons is making 27. The Sixers would have to give Grimes, what, $54 million a year to equal that salary. He can't even make that much money. Now, maybe you can combine him with like an Oubre and other guys to get there, but it just doesn't make sense from a financial standpoint for Philly, especially when I think Grimes is a better player, anyways, than Anfernee Simons. So, look, could this rumor have some legs to it? Sure. Maybe they inquired a little bit just to see what the price was. Maybe Daryl Morey is just a big fan of Anfernee Simons. But the only scenario I could possibly see a trade going down is much later in the season, closer to the trade deadline. If the Sixers are having another disaster season and they're just looking to get off some money, maybe you make a trade with Boston. This would probably have to be a big trade, a 3 or a 4 team trade. As I mentioned earlier, Sixers are bad. They take in the expiring contract of Anfernee Simons. They reset a little bit, ship off Paul George and maybe some of their own expiring contracts, like an Andre Drummond, a Kelly Oubre, and take a little bit of a reset. And maybe they do like him on this team. But I don't see it happening. And I'll tell you what, if Daryl Morey does make a move for Anfernee Simons, especially if he gives up some key pieces of this team, I'll be pretty upset. Honestly, I think that would be cause to fire Daryl Morey. It's just a Maxey Simons backcourt doesn't make a lot of sense. You're not trading for Simons to be your sixth man. But look, that's just my opinion. Maybe you agree with what I have to say. Let me know down in the comments section. Should the Sixers try to trade for Anfernee Simons? Maybe you're a huge Simons fan. And again, he's a talented player, but I don't think he makes sense on this team. Give me T for trade, P for pass. Join the conversation down in the comment section. And be sure to hit that sub button because all year long, if the Sixers make any kind of move, we're talking about trade rumors here on the show, but trades, signings, all that, news, rumors, and a whole lot more, we'll always have it covered right here on 76ers. Now, so hit that sub button, turn on those notifications, and we'll catch you next time right here on the show.